It used to be that my channel was about an old guy racing bikes. Now it's about an old guy subject to Afib racing bikes. Hey cycling community, this is Steve Grusis, the Cycling Greek. I'll talk about that in a moment though. In the meantime, I'm standing sprinting just to get a lot of power at the start. The start is my weakest point in these races. Watts per kilogram wise, I may be able to get close to the numbers that the others do, but I can't keep it there as long as they can. Now notice where I am. I'm 36th right now. And there's 38 people in this race, and I'm already getting gapped, and we just hit the first corner hitting the roller section. Not even 30 seconds into this race and I'm already playing catch up. While you watch me struggle, let's talk about the title of this video, How I Almost Went into Afib. A few years ago, after I went into Afib, and I had an EKG, I had a stress test, and they showed that I had nothing structurally wrong with me, I made some changes. And one of the changes was that no more double centuries. That also meant no more training for double centuries, no more 8-hour rides, 10-hour rides. In fact, I tried to limit it to about 3 hours. Now, there's cases where I do go up to 4 to 5 hours, but that has a lot of endurance in it. I am certainly not going hard for 5 hours. After a little experimenting and testing, I found I was able to still race, do USAC races, USA Cycling Federation races. Let's jump back to the screen real quick, and not even a full lap in and I have lost contact. While I was feeling good enough to start the race, I wasn't feeling good enough to have a good race. And for the purpose of foreshadowing why that is, I'll get to that in a bit. I also made a bunch of changes to my lifestyle. I'm getting a lot more sleep now. I used to burn the candle at both ends, and this has been for years. And for training, fatigue was my partner. I would train hard when I shouldn't train hard. I was always pushing myself. This went on for years too. I also reevaluated my diet. I used to eat pretty good, but now I'm even more plant-based. And those questionable things I used to eat, pretty much they're all gone now. This was all done in the effort to take any undue stress off of my heart. The only stress I wanted on it was stress that I put on it. With all that out of the way, let's get into specifics as to why my suckier than normal performance this time. One of the first parameters I established years ago when this happened to me was I would not ride 2 days in a row. I maintained that for a couple years, and then I started riding a couple days in a row sometimes, but they would never be hard days, so the new rule was no 2 hard days in a row. On that second day I'd do something easy like polarized zone 1, if anything. Let's jump back to the screen. It's a little after the first lap. I am so disappointed that I got dropped, and now I'm just trying to maintain at least 270 watts for the rest of the race. Why 270 watts? Well, I haven't been able to break 270 watt average for these races ever since I came back from my leg injury. So I figure I'm just going to do it now. Well, easier said than done, at least in my case. Now back to the parameters. This crit was raced on a Thursday. The previous weekend, I broke my parameters. I did 2 hard rides in a row. On that Saturday, I did a group ride in which I tested using polarized zone 3 type of training. I made a video of that experiment and I have it posted in the description below. The next day, on Sunday, I did the vegan cyclist 101-mile ride. So I didn't do the 101-mile ride, I did the 60-mile ride. So that took about 2.5 hours. In spite of the fact I was feeling good that day, I decided not to push it extra by trying to stay with the front group. So I kind of did that at the beginning and then I just let them go. For the balance of the first 2 hours, I pretty much kept it around 2.5 watts per kilogram. Before I tell you what happened in that last half hour, let's jump to the screen. After 2 laps of doing mostly 270 plus watts, I was caught by George Kouvakis out of Australia and Tak Watanabe out of Japan. In back of these guys, I am in 36th place. That means there's 2 more poor souls that are way back there behind us. Okay, back to the Afib thing. So it's now 30 minutes to go in the 60-mile event, which is ordinarily a group ride, but people treat it as a race. I started feeling a little funny. I put my finger to my carotid and I'm still in sinus, but I can tell that I'm starting to have an unusual type of drag on myself. Now the thing that I should have done is just get off the bike right there and just go and rest. But I had about 11-12 miles to go and I wanted to finish this thing out. So what I did was I pretty much just followed wheels and just sucked wheel as much as I could. Okay, so at least I was sucking wheel. But then it got to within 1 kilometer to go, and of course I want to beat everyone else if I can. And with about half a kilometer to go, I put in a big surge, got a gap, and was able to maintain that gap and finished ahead of them. I'm still in sinus. I'm not feeling any extra palpitations, but boy, I know something is wrong. After I eat, take a shower, and rest, I swear to myself I'd never do something like that again. But it ain't over yet. Palpitations come every so often. I'm still feeling that funny feeling. And that goes into the next day. So in fact, the next day is often a little worse in cases like this, where I've hit this type of thing before. Not because of a disregard of parameters, but maybe I've done some extreme jump in my particular workout where I've been feeling it for a couple days after. So that was Monday. I didn't do much of anything in terms of workouts or doing any type of weight work. Now on Tuesday, I was feeling better. Not totally great, but feeling better. So I did an easy Zwift ride and did a little weight work. By Wednesday, the palpitations were mostly gone. That funny feeling was not around as often, and I did another little easy Zwift ride, but I was unsure as to whether I was going to race the next day, which is this video. Thursday, I get up, I feel a lot better. I sleep during lunch like I usually do, and then I figure I'm good to go for the race. My warm-up went well. However, you saw what happened at the beginning of the race. I just couldn't maintain the power I needed to, which ordinarily is hard for me, but it seemed a little extra hard today. Interesting to note that I did finish this race with a 266 watt average. I'm sure maintaining 270 plus watts for a couple laps helped with that. Okay, so back on the screen. In spite of what I was mentioning earlier, I was feeling pretty good, and I decided to do some attacking and see what the others have. In working with only avatars and not being able to see their eyes, it seemed like this attack was pretty fruitful in terms of what it was telling me. It took them about half a mile to catch me. Now, I wasn't able to maintain the power I was doing, and so at the end I went back into the low 200s, and that's when they caught me, but I never really got more than a second away from them. On the next lap, which is actually half a lap after these guys caught me, I attacked again. I did it on the rollers, and this time they weren't having any of it. I got just a little bit of distance, but they were pretty much right on me and then caught me right away. And they didn't just catch me, they countered me. Fortunately, that didn't last too long. I think they were pretty tired. Or maybe they were thinking it was too far out and that I'd have a chance to catch them. A similar situation happened on the next lap, which is 2 laps to go. We're just lapped by the leaders. And now I decided to try and jump across to them so I can get a little bit of the wheel. Now, I'm not going to be able to make contact with them because they're running in hot right now. This is their last lap. They're coming into the finish. But at least I can get a bit of a gap, and maybe I can maintain that gap. I get as much as a 2-second gap, but then half a mile later, I'm again caught. And, as like last time, they counter me and they try to pull away. At this point, the smart thing for me to do is actually counter their attack right away. Well, that would have been smart if I would have had the legs for that, but I didn't have the legs, so that means I didn't have the confidence for that. However, I did have confidence in my increasing repeatability and that arrow power-up that I had waiting for me. So I measured my effort, took a little extra time, and got back on their wheel, all the while watching their watts per kilogram and the graphics on the right side of the screen. So now, unless something's going to change, my plan is to attack with 0.2 miles to go. A move like this, whether it works or not, requires commitment. You have to put everything into it as if there's no tomorrow. I have a 1-second gap, and now I hit the power up. The gap is now 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The finish line is right there, and I still think they're going to catch me. In spite that the graphics on the right there are telling me I'm coming in at 36th, I come in at 28th. When I check out Zwift.com, it shows I came in at 19th. So that means there were 8 people that either should have been category A's or that never signed up with Zwift.com. Regardless of which results you are checking out, George Tack and I were at the butt end of this race. So back to the Afib stuff. I was feeling pretty good after the race. Not necessarily because of the results, but because how I was physically feeling. So I did my home gym version of a squat and deadlift workout, and I do these after a Zwift crit race or an interval workout. That way I have more time to recover for my next ride. Today's the next day as I'm doing this video, and it's a no ride day for me. I just did a little upper body work in terms of weights. Ordinarily tomorrow would have been a group ride for me in which most of it would be endurance when I go right out to them and then come back, and then when I'm with them I'm doing some high intensity work. Even though I don't have that funny feeling, there's no palpitations, nothing like that, I decided to just take it easy and tomorrow do a polarized zone 1. Sunday I'll do my high intensity intervals. Well, maybe if I feel like it. I hope you enjoyed this video and got something out of it. Remember, manage that fatigue, take care of your heart. And also remember, comment, like, subscribe, The Cycling Greek.